Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/entitled people for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading the post, giving you my opinions at the end, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Accomplished Gold 4641. My upstairs neighbor thought quiet hours were a suggestion for other people. I live in the bottommost below-ground apartment. This is not poetic license, it is a geological and emotional reality. My windows are at shin level. Spiders make eye contact with me like we're co-workers. The sun checks in twice a day and then leaves me on red. This matters because sound does not behave normally down here. It does not fade or disperse. It settles in like it pays rent and then complains about the amenities. The entitled people upstairs moved in sometime in early spring. I know this because that is when sleep stopped being a thing I did and started being a thing I remembered fondly. They were a couple, or maybe several couples, or maybe a rotating cast of people who all believed the apartment complex existed primarily to host them. The configuration changed often, but the entitlement was constant. They would play this music all into the night to hours past the apartment complex's rules on this, which are posted in several places, including directly by the mailboxes and also in the lease they definitely did not read. Being the bottomest below-ground apartment, their music echoed like a maddening cacophony through my apartment. Bass first, then lyrics, then the faint sound of them yelling at each other over the music like that somehow helps. This was not normal loud music. This was music played by people who believe quiet hours are a vibe, not a rule. Bass heavy, soul rattling, is this an earthquake or a remix music? My dishes vibrated, my shelves cracked, my bed frame developed opinions. At 3 in the morning, I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, listening to someone else's playlist, and wondering how a person becomes so confident that no one else exists. I tried being normal about it first. I knocked on their door. I smiled. I said, "Hey, sorry to bother you. I live downstairs and the sound really carries." They looked surprised, not apologetic. Surprised. Just surprised that consequences had a physical form. They apologized anyway, turned it down, and I slept for exactly one night. After that, the volume came back like it was offended I had noticed it. I escalated my politeness, which in hindsight was foolish, but at the time felt reasonable. I was nice, shared some good weed with them as a gift, occasionally baked them things, banana bread cookies, the kind of baked goods that say, "Please, see me as a person." They accepted all of it happily, thanked me, and then continued to blast music like I was an abstract concept. I left notes. Polite ones, smiley faces, exclamation points used sparingly. Nothing. I texted them once after they gave me their number and they responded with a thumbs up emoji, which I think translates roughly to, "Cool story, bro." When I mentioned the complex quiet hours, they laughed and said, "Yeah, but everyone does it." This is an important sentence because it tells you everything you need to know about them. Not that the rule was unclear or unfair or inconvenient, but that they simply believed it did not apply to them. I did my best to get the landlords to do anything, but it appeared that I would be required to do something about it myself. The leasing office was polite in the way that suggests that they have dealt with this exact kind of person many times. "We'll remind them of the policy. We'll send them a notice. Please let us know if it continues." It continued. So I documented dates, times, duration, audio clips mostly for my own sanity, so I could play them back later and confirm that yes, this was real and not a stress hallucination. I emailed every incident calmly, consistently, like a deeply boring ghost. The entitled people upstairs responded by becoming louder, stopping, shouting, playing music earlier and later, sometimes on Tuesdays, which feels targeted. They argued loudly, made up loudly, and had friends over who also shouted loudly because apparently volume is contagious. I learned more about their lives than I wanted to. I learned that entitlement often travels in packs. At one point, they knocked on my door to tell me to stop complaining. They said they pay rent too, as if rent includes a subwoofer endorsement. They told me if I didn't like the noise, I shouldn't live in an apartment. Which is a wild thing to say to someone living underground beneath them. Things came to a head on Thursday night. I remember because I had work the next morning and hope in my heart, which was a mistake. The music started around 10. By midnight, it was at war volume. And around 1, shouting joined in. Not party shouted, but sharp, angry shouting. A new girlfriend was involved. I know because I had not yet memorized her voice. Doors slammed, something broke, and the music cut off abruptly, which somehow made the yelling feel louder. Then sirens. Red and blue lights flickered through my tiny window like a rave sponsored by Consequences. The cops showed up. Clipboards came out. Voices dropped into that tight, controlled register people use when they realize things have gone too far. This is when my brain did a small but meaningful click, because I remembered something important. Police involvement violates the lease. Noise complaints are one thing. Police visits are another. Entitled people rarely believe rules apply to them until uniforms are involved. I did not insert myself. I did not exaggerate. I simply logged what happened, like I always did, and waited. The next morning, I emailed the leasing office. Factual. Calm. I attached my documentation mentioning the police presence. I did not accuse or editorialize. I let the facts sit there and do the heavy lifting. Things moved very quickly after that. The entitled people got a warning, then another, then a notice. The music stopped for a week and I slept like the dead, which felt unfairly luxurious. Then it came back. Cautious at first, like a child testing boundaries, and then full force again because they genuinely believed they would get away with it. I kept documenting every stop. Every late-night baseline, every violation. I sent weekly summaries. I used bullet points. I was a nightmare, but a polite one. They confronted me again, accused me of being uptight, of ruining their fun, of not understanding apartment living. I told them I understood it perfectly, and that was the problem. The final straw came with another argument, another girlfriend, another visit from the police. By this point, the leasing office had a file thick enough to qualify as light reading. They were evicted. The night they moved out was silent in a way that felt unreal. I sat on my couch with a book and a sense of peace. They say entitled people never think consequences will actually happen to them, and they're usually right, until they aren't. I slept 8 uninterrupted hours. I woke up refreshed and slightly feral. The spiders approved. The lesson here is not to be vindictive. It is to understand that entitlement thrives when people assumed no one will push back. Document, know the rules better than the people breaking them. Be boring. Be relentless. Entitled people rely on everyone else being too tired to care. I was tired, but I cared anyway. And somewhere, I hope, they are explaining to a new landlord how unfair it all was, completely unaware of the irony. Hats off to OP for having a really entertaining writing style. That was an absolute treat to read. Gotta love a surprise guest appearance from Oh No Consequences creeping its way in. Avocado Pizza Cat. Karen tells me I'm not disabled. This happened today and I'm rather surprised. You see, I am disabled and I drive. I have a placard and even stickers on my car to mark it as disabled. I even have my spare cane in the car too, in case my usual one has issues. Someone once broke a cane I was using while I was out, so I tend to be overprepared. Today, I was at a local support group for disabled people and parked in a handicapped spot. I put my placard up. Since we have some smokers, the door was unlocked, but some forget and knock anyways. We thought the knocking was one of the people in the group that was either late or a smoker, so we invited them in. Instantly, this loud woman came in ranting about a car that sounded like mine. going on and on about how real disabled people need that spot, and whoever had that car is not disabled like her. She was demanding it to be moved for a real disabled person like her, and for the offender to apologize to her. I sometimes forget to hang up my placard as I can't always get a disabled spot. So I get up and say, I could have sworn I put up my placard. I'm sorry that I forgot. I grabbed my keys and started towards the door. The lady ranting followed me as she ranted at me for not being disabled. Couldn't remember it all, she kept saying the same things, and I was more focused on double-checking my car. One of the staff that ran the group went with us as they were trying to calm down the lady. Once my car was in view, it had its placard. It was labeled legal. I pointed this out to the lady, whom was still yelling at me, which took a couple of minutes since she wasn't listening. When she finally listened to me, she didn't believe me and claimed to not see it. The staff member with us pointed it out as well. At this point, the lady said, "Oh, I see. Forget I said anything. I didn't see it. Forget everything." And she ran off. Literally ran off. The staff member and I went back to the disabled support group where everyone told me to forget about that Karen, but honestly, I'm worried. If she couldn't see all the markings in and on my car that pretty much screamed disabled, then I am worried about her driving in the first place. So next time I drive to or from my support group, I'm gonna be more careful, just in case she really had eyes that bad and still drives. I was gonna ask if there was any signage or posters or anything that could possibly, inform her that she was walking into a support group for disabled people, but the fact that she missed the placard and all the stickers on the vehicle that signified it to be a disabled person's vehicle and marched in, I get the feeling that even if she was marching into a disabled person support group, she probably wouldn't even see the signs in the first place, and, yeah. Either she has selective information input or extremely bad vision, and both of those are extremely concerning if she's actively on the road. Quick question for the audience, at what point is it acceptable to force someone to retake a driver's training course or like a driver's test in order for them to reobtain their license to make sure they're safe to be on the road still? I personally think once every 20 years. Kitchen ad 937. My step-uncle and real estate agent tried illegally selling my house and then demanded compensation for deleting the listing. I just remembered it and needed to take it out. First thing first, excuse my English, it's not my first language. Nice help with grammar is welcomed. This story needs a little background, so stay with me. My real grandfather died when my dad was 15. Grandma married again, and that man was my grandpa, and I loved him. For the first 10 years of my life, I didn't even know we weren't related. He was amazing and he literally spoiled me, but he never adopted my dad. It wasn't a normal thing to do then, and Dad was already an adult, so they didn't even think about it. Unfortunately, we lost him due to cancer when I was 11. He knew he would die, so he told me about his history, so he could warn me about my step-uncles. He was married before and had 2 sons. But his wife was cheating on him and he divorced her. Those 2 boys might not even be his, but at the time, he was listed in the birth certificate as the father and nobody cared about the what if, and DNA testing wasn't a thing then. Both boys cut all contact with him. He tried for years to have contact with them, but they refused, even as adults, and said pretty nasty things. One of his sons, let's call him Other Uncle because I never see him, didn't talk to him for 25 years. Other one, Evil Uncle, you'll see why later, did contact him 15 years ago to get my grandpa to pay off his debts and get free housing for him and his wife, just to try to steal grandpa's house when they moved in with him. So yeah, no more contact for him either. Grandpa also never met his own grandchildren. That was the main reason why he spoiled me so much. I was his second chance to be a grandfather. When my grandpa entered the final stages of cancer and was in hospital, Evil Uncle and Other Uncle visited him for the first time since last contact, 25 and 15 years ago, with paperwork that said Grandpa is gifting his house to them, and tried to force my heavily sedated grandpa to sign it. Thankfully, the nurse came in and kicked them out. After that, Grandma took him home and took care of him herself to protect him. He died peacefully in his bed. Both uncles came to the will reading, where everyone, even my parents, were shocked I was named as the only inheritor. That enraged my step-uncles, especially the evil uncle. They immediately brought it to court. I was represented by my dad, I was 11 after all, so I don't know the details, but we won it 2 years later. Other uncle acknowledged it and disappeared again. But evil uncle appealed the judgment and went back to the court for 3 more years. We won it again, but it took an emotional and financial toll on our family, and we had to sell the house. So that's the background of the story. Now to the main event. A few days after we won, some realtor used a key and entered the house, where my grandma still lived, and told her son is selling, and in the next 10 minutes, there will be a tour. She was shocked, but she knew we wanted to sell, so she didn't make a big deal out of it. But when they left, she called my dad and told him we could have at least warned her. That's how we found out about the listing on the internet. Put on there almost a month ago, when we were still fighting at court. There were even photos of the interior. Dad tried to call the realtor, but he was blocked. So he told Grandma to call him if they ever came back, which had happened 2 days later. She said the same realtor is there, telling her there will be 2 tours this time. Dad went there immediately. He must have broken a couple of laws because a 3-hour drive took him less than 2, and confronted the realtor. And that is how we found out the whole story. Someone had called them about selling the house. The fake seller told the realtor that he is aboard, that he was at court because of the house and just won. He had sent them fake paperwork, and of course, they didn't verify it. They just saw the money they could make. He mailed them keys. The keys' evil uncle didn't return when he moved out. Grandpa didn't change locks, and told him when to enter and take photos, and even made some tours before they were caught. It was the dates when court hearings were, so Grandma wasn't home. And my dad was blocked because fake seller told them that it's the number of the thief who's trying to steal his house. They never saw the fake seller, and we couldn't prove it was evil uncle. Even though we knew it was him, the keys still had a keychain my grandpa put on them when he gave them to him. And we couldn't prove the realtor knew about any foul play. Of course, the police didn't help at all, just gave the realtor a warning and told him to delete the listing. He even had the audacity to try to convince my dad to continue selling with them. But my dad refused. Now, you might think, why the realtor is the evil one too? He truly might not know. And that is true, even though they were guilty of negligence when they didn't verify the ownership, which is the easiest thing to do. Everyone can do it. What he was guilty of is how he tried to scam my dad out of money after this. He sent us an invoice for breaking this sales agency agreement. You know, the contract we never signed because we weren't the ones who put on the listing. They wanted 10% from the listing price of the house, or keep being the only realtors who is listing our house, which will guarantee them a 10% as commission. The realtor truly believed my dad is some countryside simpleton that he can scam. Unfortunately for him, so close after the court, we're still in contact with a very expensive and very good lawyer, who quickly reminded him how easily we can sue, if we want to. So, invoice was taken back, and we were never contacted by them again. Oh, but the audacity. Thank you for hearing me out. In the end, it had kind of a happy ending. We used the money that was left from selling the house and bought an apartment, just 30-minute walk from us, where Grandma spends the rest of her years, visited by us every week, and where I live now. I just know that Uncle burned a stupid amount of money throughout the court system just to handle this, and it sucks that pretty much by his antics, he forced OP and their father to have to sell the home because he would rather try to sue into oblivion than actually maintain a proper relationship with his father. In quotes. Instead, swooping in while he's on his deathbed, trying to get him to sign away to the rights to the house, and then swooping in again after the will has been read out and trying to use the courts to overturn the wishes of a dead man. Nice. And then by doing so, forcing them to have to then sell the house because they can't afford the legal hell that he brought upon them. Literally, no one won. Greed really does make a person see the only option is taking everyone down with them than actually just being civil about it. Maggie Mara. Dude was determined to take me, an engaged woman, home. I'm not sure if this belongs here. If it doesn't, feel free to remove. I just wanted to tell this story somewhere. I live in a very rural area. We have community hall dances every few months that me and the girls always attend together. We stay in our group of girls and always have a good time. This time was different. There's always someone hammered at the dance, confusing a community hall dance for a bar, but we always ignore whoever it is that's in the stage. Well, last night, they didn't give us much room to ignore them. This guy that I've never seen before walks straight over to our group. Immediately I see him look me up and down, and then he stood there silently for a moment, giving me direct eye contact. For reference, eye contact makes me quite uncomfortable. I looked away and continued talking with my friends. He starts complimenting my hair, and in my head, I knew what he was trying to do. I just nodded and said, "That's nice of him." He continues on to say, if he was my boyfriend, he wouldn't leave me alone for any guy to take me home. And I said to him, well, me and my fiancé have trust. So... And then he keeps going on, saying, oh, well, if it were me, I wouldn't let a girl like you out of my sight. He then starts telling my other friend that he'll help her up. She was crouching because she was cold and we were outside for a puff break. She declined and he goes, don't worry, I'm not one of those guys. Me and my friends gave each other the look and walked right past the guy to another area. Skip to 10 minutes later. I'm dancing with my girls and we're having a good time. My mom was hitting the dance floor, so I started recording her to send to my sister. And here comes this guy again. And I got this on video. He practically walks through my mom, pushing her out of the way to get to me. He comes right beside me, literally shoulder to shoulder. Keep in mind, this is a dance, not a club. He did not need to be touching me. He leaned into my ear and goes, you can't be recording all of this. I go, well, I'm recording my mom. He replies, your mom? And so I point at my mom and say, yes, that is my mom. And he then changes the subject and says, again, in my friggin' ear, are you single? Which I'd already answered once. I said, no, I'm not. And he goes, oh, you have a boyfriend? I said, actually. And I put my ring right in his face. He takes a second of awkwardly staring at me, and my ring still touching me. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't move, he had me basically pinned between him and the table. He put his hands up, steps away, and goes, I respect that, and begins to ask why my fiancé isn't there. And I tell him that my fiancé is a working man and was at his night shift providing for me. I then cut off his last sentence and tell him, this is me and the girls' song. I'm going to dance with them. And I walked past him and left him standing there awkwardly. You'd think he'd give up. Nope. He stared at me the entire night. The girl he brought with him comes up to me and tells me she was trying to explain to him that I'm engaged, but he's hell-bent on bringing me home. I told her that's never happening. After two of my friends left for the night, I was still hanging out with my friend who was coming back to my place with me. He comes over again. He stands about 2 feet in front of me and starts flirting with my friend. He kept giving me this look like he's trying to make me jealous. But really now, you're just making multiple girls uncomfortable. He starts telling my friend, we were outside for a puff break, that she should go inside because she must be cold if he's freezing out there. We told him we were fine, but he was welcome to go back inside. He then starts saying to her that she has to go inside because she'll freeze. I look at him and I said, she's fine. And he goes, I know she is, but she should go inside. So me and her look at him and walk past him and go inside together. Behind us, I heard him go, look, I'm just trying to make friends. I'm not trying to be rude. We ignored him and left a few minutes after. I forgot to mention earlier, after the first encounter, we told the bouncer to keep an eye on him and left our drinks with the dance coordinator to keep watch because this guy seemed absolutely determined he was going to take me home one way or another. Edit, I forgot to mention the part where he kept saying in my ear, you're the hottest one here, you know. And I said to him, well, that's your opinion. And he goes, but it's true, you're hotter than all of them. And I said, well, I think all my girls are hot. And he kept saying the same thing throughout our encounters. Just wanted to add that. Edit. I hate that I feel the need to defend myself, but here we go. For those asking why I didn't yell in his face, as I mentioned in another comment, I have PTSD, specifically related to this type of thing. I find it very hard to actually have a voice and stand up for myself. I was actually proud of myself for keeping my cool and handling it in a calm manner instead of breaking down and ruining our night. Yelling at a man and telling him to F off has gotten me, and many other women, into even more dangerous situations. Women do not always feel safe getting loud and aggressive. Making a scene could have made this guy snap for all I know. And he does know people who know where I live, so no. I don't want to give this person a reason to become aggressive. I didn't give him any signal whatsoever that I wanted him around. None of us did. As I mentioned before, this is an extremely rural area. For those saying they would have left and went to a different venue. That wasn't an option. There is not another dance in town going on the same time, and we weren't going to let this guy push us out and ruin our girls' night. As for people asking why the coordinator didn't tell him to leave, this guy happened to come with the coordinator's daughter, and I'm guessing, like me, no one wanted to cause a scene. This guy was a creep, and sure, in the big cities, maybe this is something that's easier to handle and more common. I don't go out other than the community hall dances. Our group doesn't have this happen to us. We don't go to clubs or bars. We go to the dances because it's normally a very safe space for us. This was a very new experience for us, and none of us had been through it before to know exactly what to do other than to stay close and walk away to another area in the dance. I did stand up for myself in the only way I physically could as someone with the PTSD I have. I'm proud of myself. We were all safe at the end of the night, and even if I didn't scream at the top of my lungs, I held my ground and didn't whimper and cower like I would have in the past. So you can go down the victim blaming route all you want, but I'm proud of me. My girls are proud of me, and I'm safe. If you'd rather blame the women trying to have a good time with their girls instead of the creep who didn't understand personal space and how to respect an engagement ring, then that's your choice. But it says more about you than it does about me. Thank you. I will not be responding to any more victim-blaming comments. Thank you to those who actually understand and have been so kind and supportive. Stay safe out there. So I did scan through the comments a little bit. Thankfully, most of them are supportive, but there are a couple comments that are like, I'm sure you loved the attention, don't lie. So yeah, they are in fact there, unfortunately. And because OP didn't live up to the Redditor fantasy of, standing up for yourself and going like, no, you need to go away, you fucking creep, fuck you. Followed by having the perfect comeback prepared because every Redditor who thinks they know better in a situation like this always seems to be like, well, if I was in this situation, I'd say this. You did this wrong. Like, we've literally seen people who just go about their life and are like, yeah, I had this weird encounter here, don't know how to handle it. Yeah, you're the asshole to yourself for letting this happen to you. Thanks, dude. Do you actually want to constructively contribute to the conversation, or do you just want to live out a power fantasy of how cool you are in the comment section? Remember, everyone, if you don't act in accordance to the Reddit hive mind, you're an asshole to yourself, and you should have known better. God, I hate those comments. Thankfully, they're a minority, but they still happen, and goddamn are they frustrating. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code Oz at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.